Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to episode 10. Episode 10 of the VinDawg pod. We're at week 5 now. This is crazy. You know, I I'm starting to realize that I started this 5 weeks before the season started. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. I'm shocked that I'm still doing this. I mean, I'm not actually that shocked. I said I was going to do this, but I'm just shocked that, I'm feeling so good about it and that we're at week 5 and we're exactly where I thought we would be 10 weeks ago. Or 10 episodes ago, I guess we can say. Obviously, last Saturday, the University of Washington, the number 7 ranked University of Washington crushes Cal 59-32, scores 45 points in the first half. UW is now the highest ranked Pac-12 team in the AP poll. We'll get into the AP poll in a little bit. Let me give you guys a rundown of the podcast, of course, today. I'm going to do a weekly review, UW athletics, all that stuff. We'll go over week 4, some of those big non-conference results. We'll give a Pac-12 rundown, of course. We'll talk about the updated AP poll and who I think the Heisman favorites are. And, of course, we'll get into my analysis of the UW and Cal game. We're going to go ahead and preview week 5 as well. Talk about some of the biggest matchups. We'll talk about that Pac-12 slate. It's a good-looking slate. I'm pretty excited for that. And UW versus Arizona predictions. And then last but not least, of course, the betting segment. I was cooking last week. I cooked last week, and we're gonna cook again this week. I feel even better this week than I did last week as far as my picks, and I did pretty good last week. So let's just get right into it. Let's just go right into our weekly review, weekly recap. UW Athletics, of course, first and foremost, on the 22nd, Friday. Women's soccer falls to Cal 1-0. On the 23rd, Saturday, football defeats Cal 59-32, of course. On the 24th, on Sunday, volleyball falls to ASU 3-1. And then men's soccer, in a big-time game, defeated number 5 Portland 3-1. On the 28th, which I believe Thursday, women's soccer narrowly loses to number 4 UCLA 2-3. Next week, starting with today, volleyball is at Oregon. Tomorrow, you have the first softball fall game of the season, which is very exciting. I'm going to have to try to find a way to watch that. I'm not going to be able to get to UW. I'm going to find a way to figure that out. But softball will be playing Eastern Oregon, and then men's soccer will be playing Oregon State, and then, of course, football will be traveling to the desert to play Arizona. On October 1st, getting into October now, wow, we're flying by these days. Volleyball will be facing Oregon State on the road, and then women's soccer will come up against number 10 USC at home. On the 2nd is the Golf Blessings Collegiate Invitational. That'll last 3 days. And then also the men's tennis ITA All-American Championship. That will also be lasting 3 days. On October 5th, is women's soccer at Arizona State University, and then men's soccer at home against San Diego State University. Now, let's get into Seattle sports. Now, this is I know I'm a college podcast right now, but Seattle sports are kind of making its waves right now. Obviously, the Seahawks handle business 37-27 against the Panthers. Back-to-back 37-point games for the Seahawks. I think they're, other than the Dolphins, I think they're now the second highest scoring team in the NFL, which is crazy given the week 1 blunder against the Rams. Kenneth Walker, obviously, getting himself back on track. The offense looked good. Geno looks efficient. Big test on Monday Night Football against the Giants. Pretty exciting. I'm glad they get a primetime spot. The Giants haven't looked very good. The Seahawks are starting to finally gain momentum. I think a big win against the Giants to go 3-1 would do wonders for this team. The Mariners. Oh, the Mariners. Now, this was a bad week by all metrics of bad weeks, but Thursday night was electric. As electric as it gets. Mariners defeat Rangers Thursday night to keep the season alive. The Mariners were down 2-1 going into the 9th inning. bases loaded with no outs. And just when you thought the Mariners were gonna do what the Mariners always do and find a way to mess it up, J.P. Crawford decided to save the day. J.P. I'm gonna give a round of applause for J.P. Crawford. That's the man. Put the captain badge on him right now. I don't know why he hasn't had it. I remember last year everyone calling for his throat, telling him, get him out of here. Get JP out of here. He's the man. JP is the man. Now here's the problem. The Mariners, other than yesterday, were 1-5 in their previous 6 games. They could have gone 2-4. They could have gone 3-3. Instead, they went 1-5, and now the Mariners are in a position where they need to win at least 2 of the next 3 games. Luckily for you guys, I have an entire recap of what the Mariners need to do in order to get into the playoffs. So the Mariners have 3 games left. The Astros are 1 game ahead of the Mariners. Now keep in mind, the Mariners have the tiebreaker on the Astros, but they do not have the tiebreaker on the Rangers. The Mariners can clinch the playoffs if and only if 5 scenarios. 1, the Mariners finish 2-1, and the Astros finish 1-2. 2, the Astros finish 0-3, and the Mariners finish 1-2. 3, the Mariners sweep the Rangers, go 3-0 in their next 3 games, and the Astros lose at least 1 game, or the Blue Jays lose 2 games. Or the Mariners finish 2-1, and Toronto finishes 1-3. Those are the 5 scenarios. The thing is, Mariners cannot afford to only win 1 game. The Mariners have to win 2 games here, because the Astros are not going to get swept by the Diamondbacks. That's not going to happen. So we can't rely on that. The Mariners need to win at least 2 games here, and it's a big 2 games. So the hope is that they'll be able to do it, but I mean, who knows? The thing is, the Astros, they'd love to lose to teams they have no business losing to. Not to say that the Diamondbacks are a bad team, but anything can happen. You know, anything in this world can happen. I dropped something. All right, we're back. So that's the weekly recap. That's Seattle sports for you. Let's get into it. Week 4 review. Let's go over last week in college football. Marquee matchups failed to disappoint. And when I wrote that headline, I had to make sure I was saying it correctly. Failed to not disappoint would mean that they did disappoint, but they failed to disappoint. It was exciting. It was good. It was entertaining. Number 6 Ohio State defeated number 9 Notre Dame on a last-second touchdown, 17-14. Notre Dame had 10 guys on the field, and the Ohio State tight end false started. So everything went terrible for the Fighting Irish, but doesn't matter anymore because Ohio State won the game. Number 7 Penn State destroyed number 24 Iowa 31-0. Kind of shows you that Iowa was, other than the tight end position, not as good as people thought. Number 13 Alabama holds off number 15 Ole Miss 24-10 victory. I don't really understand how Ole Miss only fell 3 spots in the ranking after losing to Bama. But goodbye Colorado, goodbye UCLA. They lost to better teams by less. What do I know? Well, I'm not AP. I'm not Mr. AP. I don't know. And then, of course, number 12 LSU squeaks by Arkansas 34-31. Jalen Daniel, 320 yards, doing his thing. He looks like the man. So that's exciting. Good for LSU. Pac-12 play began conference in style, man. Pac-12 was fun. And it's exactly what we thought it would be. Number 5 USC beats ASU 42-28 in a closer game than it should have been. All right. Arizona State sucks. They're the 2nd worst team in the Pac-12, but USC's defense is so inconsistent that they gave up 28 points. I don't know how that happened. Caleb Williams, 322 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground as well, 5 total touchdowns. Caleb Williams is like a generational talent. You should be able to kill the second worst team in the Pac-12 with a generational talent, but they couldn't. So, whatever. Marshawn Lloyd, 14 carries, 154 yards for USC. Number 10, Oregon embarrassed number 19, Colorado, 42-6. Dropped Colorado right out of the ranking. Bo Nix had 276 yards and 3 touchdowns. Shedeur Sanders only had 159 yards passing. With a 35-0 game at half. This game was over before it started. Not to mention that Colorado had less than 200 yards in the game. Not very prime time of them. But, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but they go up against that was a really good Oregon defense. Like, Oregon defense is legit. USC defense, not legit. So I'm excited to see how things will change because of that for next week with Colorado. Number 11, Utah defeats number 22, UCLA, 14-7 in a defensive masterclass from Utah. Utah had a pick 6 on the first play. Like, I don't know. There's not much you can do at that point if you're UCLA. Like Dante Moore, I'm sorry, buddy. Like, that's just not how you want to do it. I don't care what Chip Kelly has up his sleeve or if he has his first name on his shoulder. You can't get away with a pick 6 on the first play when you're playing against any elite defense like Utah. Utah wins by 7. They struggled offensively. I mean, without Cam Rising, they just don't really have the answers. But didn't matter. Their defense took them to victory. Number 21, Wazoo stuns number 14, Oregon State, 38-35 at home in a thriller. I thought Wazoo was about to coug it. If you watched the game, there was an onside kick at the end, and everybody and their mothers thought Oregon State recovered it. I was like, oh my! I'm at the UW tailgate. I'm just chilling in the parking lot, watching the game off of some dude's TV in his trailer, and I'm like, oh my god, Oregon State just got no, they didn't. Unfortunately, they did not get the onside kick. Wazoo ended up winning the game. It was quite the game, too. I mean, Cam Ward, Heisman statement. Dude, now Wazoo, obviously, is going to have to pretty much go undefeated if Cam Ward wants to win the Heisman because everyone hates the Pac-12. And unless you are a massive, massive name like Caleb Williams or Michael Penix Jr. right now, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. However, Cam Ward looked like the man, dude. He looked like the man. 404 yards, 4 touchdowns, and did it all on the ground as well. That's disgusting. Josh Kelly, also disgusting. He had that unbelievable spin move touchdown. I thought I was wrong about Oregon State's defense this year. Their defensive backs look a little bit undersized as far as going up against top tier talent. And I feel like Wazoo now you can put in the category of top tier offensive talent. And I said at the beginning of the year, this team is going to surprise a lot of people. They are surprising a lot of people. I think they should be ranked higher than they are, but happens. Oregon State's rushing offense is still nearly unstoppable. So if they could fix some things defensively and just continue their run game, maybe DJU can be a little bit smarter throwing the football. This team is going to be dangerous. Arizona narrowly beat Stanford in a 21-20 terrible football game. Let me just preface this by saying that Stanford has no business even being in a 1-point game. The fact that Stanford covered it all is blasphemy to me. Stanford is so bad, and Arizona only beat them by 1. So I'll keep that in mind for when I start talking about it later. But it was almost a moral victory for Stanford, just the fact that they kept it that close. Arizona's pass rush looks fantastic. If they can get to the quarterback, they're set. But if they can't get to the quarterback, their defensive backs don't look that great, and they couldn't figure out how to tackle an open field. So that's a couple problems for Arizona. And then, of course, number 8, Washington blows Cal out of the water in a 59-32 win. I will get more in depth on that game shortly. Let's go over the updated AP poll now. At number 1, you have Georgia. Number 2, Michigan. Number 3, Texas. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 5, Florida State. Number 6, Penn State. Number 7, Washington. Number 8, USC. Number 9, Oregon. Number 10, Utah. That's 4 Pac-12 teams in the top 10, ladies and gentlemen. Number 11, Notre Dame. Number 12, Alabama. Number 13, LSU. Number 14, Oklahoma. Number 15, North Carolina. Number 16, Washington State. I think Wazoo should be top 15, but that's just me, I guess. Number 17, Duke. Number 18, Miami. Number 19, Oregon State. Number 20, Ole Miss. Number 21, Tennessee. Number 22, Florida. 23, Missouri. 24, Kansas. And 25, Fresno State. So, AP Top 25, very interesting. I hate a lot of the teams that are on there. I hate a lot of them. I feel like Florida shouldn't be on there. I think Florida's not that good this year, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll go and find out. Now let's go ahead and review that UW versus Cal game. Washington dominated Cal with its starters. I mean, just completely dominated. I think it was like 414 yards to 240 yards until they pulled the backups out or put the backups in. And then once the backups came in and the game ended, I think Cal ended with like 500 yards. But what does it matter? I feel like it doesn't matter at that point because who cares how many yards they got on our second and third stringers? I certainly don't. I certainly could give less of a crap given that our offense and our starters looked as good as it did. With the starters, UW did not punt a single time. 6 scores, 1 interception, and 1 turnover on down. A phenomenal showing from that offense, especially in what, they play Cal close every year. Every year, it's always a close game. They went and blew them out of the water. So that was a massive statement there for UW. Rome Odunze, he's established himself in the Heisman conversation, guys. I mean, he is on pace to break what Devonta Smith did in his Heisman campaign. Rome Odunze last week, 5 receptions, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, 83-yard punt return. Unbelievable stuff. Julian Polk also had a phenomenal game. We'll get more. We'll get into all of that. Defense is getting better and better each week. 3 interceptions last week. We've got some All-Americans on that defense. And the crazy thing is you just needed a top 30 defense to, support the offense a little bit and get them where they need to be. This is a top 20 defense we're looking at. And we haven't really played anyone, of course. You can always make that argument, but they look really good. And their ability to prevent defenses from getting down the field consistently is big time. And we're about to have a test against Oregon in 2 weeks, so we're going to see there. But, of course, this Arizona game, you're going to see it again. This defense is legit. The run game is finding the occasional explosive play, but it still needs so much improvement. 30 carries, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm glad we're getting the run game involved more. 30 carries is what we need to be doing, but we need to figure it out. We need to figure out how can we consistently be getting 6 yards a carry, Until we figure that out, who knows where we'll be at. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the VinDawg Heisman Watch for this year. I got 5 players on it right now. And funny enough, all 5 are Pac-12 players. So you can clearly tell that this is like a Pac-12 Heisman Watch. But I feel like there's a legitimate conversation to be made that all 5 of these guys should be up there in the conversation. At number 1, you have Michael Penix Jr., 74.6% completion percentage, 1,636 yards, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's an unreal stat line. At number 2, Caleb Williams, 74.3 completion percentage, 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, no interceptions, 3 rushing touchdowns. He's a generational player. Like I said, it just so happened to be that he's getting beat out a little bit by Penix right now. At number 3, I got Cam Ward. Just like Michael Penix Jr., 74.6 completion percentage, 1,390 yards, 13 touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. He's the man. And then I got Bo Nix, 79.4 completion percentage, 1,169 yards, 11 touchdowns, an interception, and a rushing touchdown. And at number 5, I have Rome Odunze, who's got 27 receptions through 4 games, 544 yards, and 6 total touchdowns. Let's get into week 5, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into week 5. We got some fun matchups outside of the Pac-12 this week. We have number 3 Texas versus number 24 Kansas. We have number 13 LSU versus number 20 Ole Miss. We have number 11 Notre Dame versus number 7 Duke. Number 17, my apologies, number 17 Duke. And we have number 21 Tennessee versus South Carolina. And I'm excited to watch these games because you really don't know. I think Texas should be able to handle Kansas pretty well, especially since they're playing Oklahoma next week. This is almost like let's prove it. Let's prove what we got before we really go into Oklahoma there. LSU, Ole Miss. LSU lost pretty badly earlier. Ole Miss just lost by 14 to Bama. I'm curious to see how that'll click and play. Notre Dame and Duke. Now, Duke is undefeated, but Notre Dame played toe-and-toe with Ohio State, and Ohio State is a top 5 team right now. So, with that being said, I just think Notre Dame's the better team. And then Tennessee, South Carolina. I feel like Tennessee is right where they belong at 21, and I feel like South Carolina is a little disrespected. I think South Carolina could make a statement win happen here. Let's go into the Pac-12 Week 5 slate. Why don't we? Number 10 Utah versus number 19 Oregon State. That's happening Friday tonight. Oregon State gets a chance to bounce back after their loss versus Wazoo, and they're going to be going up against a top defense in Utah. But the thing is Utah's offense isn't that explosive. And I think that that's going to be a big-time turnaround for an Oregon State team that has a phenomenal rushing game. They're not going to get exposed as much through the air. This could really go in Oregon State's favor. Number 8, USC versus Colorado. How does Colorado respond after the Oregon beatdown? I think the biggest difference to me is that Colorado went up against an elite Oregon defense. USC's defense is far from elite. So I could see them keeping it close. I could see Colorado consistently scoring. I don't doubt that USC is going to just put up touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. But I think that Colorado could keep pace with their ability to just, they got Shedeur Sanders. They have great receivers. I don't know if Travis Hunter is going to play, but they have players who are able to make things happen. And I'm anticipating a very high-scoring game, and I think it'll be closer than people think. Number 9, Oregon versus Stanford. Poor Stanford, about to get murdered by Oregon. I mean, Stanford's not going to be able to do anything offensively, and Oregon's pretty much going to do whatever they want offensively. So that will be a rough one. Arizona State versus Cal. I think Cal has a chance to really bounce back from a tough loss against UW. They kept their starters in for a while. Their starters finally started to get a little bit of a groove going against our second and third stringers. But the reality is that this Arizona State team is not that good. They just beat Stanford by 1 point. I'm expecting Cal to really go in and put a beating on them. And then, of course, number 7, Washington versus Arizona. Does UW get it done in the desert? Let's get into that, why don't we? Let's do a little UW versus Arizona breakdown for this week. Here's why the University of Washington has the advantage and the opportunity to blow Arizona away. Arizona's offense struggled against Stanford in this narrow win. Now, if you guys remember last year, it was 48-38, I believe. 48-38 or 38-28. One of the two. UW ended up winning by 10, but it was still a high-scoring affair. That won't happen this year. Arizona's offense does not have what it takes to keep up with the pace of Washington's offense. Arizona's defense cannot tackle in the open field. I watched almost every one of their games. Mississippi State is not a good team. They lost to Mississippi State because they couldn't tackle anybody. They also turned it over 5 times, but they couldn't tackle anybody. So, and if you put McMillan or Odunze or Polk in those situations where they get the ball 30 yards downfield and it's one-on-one against a cornerback, they're breaking that tackle and they're going to score. So Arizona has a lot to work on. Arizona is only the 62nd ranked pass defense. So this could get out of hand pretty quickly if they don't figure out some sort of adjustment to stop 3 NFL-ready receivers. I think the biggest story is if the pass rush failed to get home, which pass rushers have failed to get home to Penix every game this year, pass rush failed to get home, receivers are going to get wide open against these defensive backs. What UW can do to exploit Arizona's weaknesses? Pressure. Arizona ranks 119th in the nation in turnover margin with a -5 turnover margin. And they've gotten a few turnovers themselves. So to be -5 against some not very good teams is not where you want to be going into this matchup against UW. Protect the quarterback, Washington. If Penix has time, he's just going to be throwing deep ball after deep ball after deep ball. But if the pressure gets home quick, he's going to have to dump it off, and that's where Arizona's going to take advantage. If Penix has to throw the ball quickly and not utilize those big plays, those big RAC plays, then anything can happen. Anything can happen. Anything can happen any given Saturday as it is. So if the pass rush gets home, that's what you can expect. Stop the run and force Arizona to pass. I think Jaden Delora is going to be out. I think Arizona might have their backup, but there's a good chance that Delora plays. Either way, if you stop the run and you force Arizona to throw the football against our secondary, mistakes are going to happen. Turnovers are going to happen. UW is going to get the ball with good field position, and UW's offense will destroy them. So you need to get after the quarterback, and you need to stop the run. Also, if you're Washington, just keep your foot on the gas. I mean, they've done it all season. 45 points in the first half here, 35 against Michigan State. Keep your foot on the gas early. Score points early. Get this game out of hand immediately. Don't let Arizona have any sort of mentality of coming back, because that is how it'll happen. Arizona's come back in almost every game. I mean, Mississippi State, they were losing like 21-0 when they came back. They were losing to Stanford and they came back. Not that that's really saying much, but Arizona has been losing before and they have made it a game again. So you have to prevent that from happening. Make it too far of a deficit for them to come back from, and you'll be fine. Now that's easy to say, but you know. Let's do a little bit of predicting. Washington is -18. The over/under is 67.5. Take the spread, guys. UW is more likely to cover the 18 points than Arizona is to put enough points on the board to get the over. I genuinely, I see it like it last week. I think they put up at least 28 points in the first half. Maybe the 28-7 by halftime. I think the game ends 48-21 is my prediction. Obviously, you know, that's over 67.5, but you never know what could happen. UW could always just keep their starters in if it's not as big of a blowout as they would anticipate. Though Arizona is not going to have the chances that Cal had to put up all those garbage time points. I think that UW spread is the pick here. I know everything everyone says about the desert. I know that Arizona is 7-6 against AP top 10 ranked opponents at home since 2005, I believe is the statistic. But the reality is that this team is different than most teams. And I think that people around the nation are really starting to pick up on that. So take advantage. Washington -18. That is the play. I think that Penix is going to have another Heisman-esque performance. He knows where he is in this conversation. If you think that Penix doesn't hear what's being said about him, you are oblivious to reality, because he knows that he is now leading the Heisman odds. He's going to have 400 plus yards. He's going to have 4 touchdowns. And I think he has them both before the 10-minute mark of the fourth quarter. I think that's how good of a game he's going to have. I think Odunze, again, will continue his Heisman resume with 110 plus yards and 4 touchdowns. Not 4 touchdowns. 110 plus yards and a touchdown. Maybe he'll have 4 touchdowns. I don't know. If McMillan suits up, him and Polk combined, 200 plus yards. They're quite literally the best trio of receivers I've ever seen in college football, and I've watched for a while. I mean, this is just unbelievable stuff that we're witnessing. I also predict that the defense is going to force at least 3 turnovers. We saw it last week, when they forced 3 interceptions on Cal. I think that they're going to do the same thing. I think the pressure is going to get home, and I think Arizona's going to make bad decisions. I think they'll fumble here or there. Count it, 3 turnovers. A -5 turnover differential for Arizona. Like, that's not good. So that's my expectation. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get things finished off with the betting segment. Now, the VinDawg been kind of cold, right? But not last week. Last week, the VinDawg only missed one, and he's a little upset about missing it because he thought that it was going to be a cool game. But we'll get into it. Notre Dame covered 3.5 versus Ohio State in that 17-14 win. Now, that was a sweat. I thought they were going to win outright, but of course then Ohio State scores, still covered. Texas covers minus 14.5 versus Baylor, 38-6 win. We knew that was going to happen. Baylor stinks. Texas good. Rutgers covered plus 24.5 versus Michigan, 7-31 is the final score. Half a point. We will take that. God bless you, Rutgers. They scored like that first possession. They didn't score since. Jeez. Duke covers minus 21.5 to UConn, 41-7. That was big time. We knew that was going to happen. I'm proud of my boys. Duke making it happen. UConn just, they played a pretty weak schedule and they did not look good. So I knew that I felt like 21 points wasn't enough. Clearly it wasn't enough. Big win for Duke. And then, of course, my one loss. Oregon State followed to Wazoo 35-38, failed to cover the -3 spread. A 4-1 week. We are now back up to 12-14 overall. And this week, we are going to get above 500. Let's get into it. Washington -18 versus Arizona. Lock that one in. I don't care about the desert. UW is too good. I think Arizona's going to fall apart trying to defend the deep ball. I think it gets out of hand early. Give me UW spread. Tulane -20.5 versus UAB. Tulane has a great defense and they love to score. I don't think UAB has any ability to match up whatsoever against Tulane. I think that they're barely going to put any points on the board. I think Tulane runs away with it. This is going to be a bad one. Give me Tulane -20.5. Oregon -27.5 versus Stanford. Oregon just clobbered a way better Colorado team. Like, Colorado is so much better than Stanford. I don't even know how to emphasize it to you guys. Stanford stinks. The fact that it's only 27.5, I think, is a disgrace. It's gonna be a murder. I think it's gonna be like 56-20, maybe. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Oklahoma -20.5 versus Iowa State. Oklahoma has handled business easily this year. Iowa State is yet to face a team like Oklahoma. They lost 10-7 to Ohio. Not Ohio State, Ohio. So this Iowa State is just not very good. They're about to be shell-shocked by the fact that they went from not great competition to really, really good competition. I think Oklahoma blows them out of the water. Hawaii versus UNLV, over 58.5 points. UNLV has hit this over in all games but one where they missed it by a half. Hawaii is going to give up 30-plus points, but they could score 30 on their own. I mean, this UNLV team isn't necessarily fantastic, and I do think Hawaii will probably lose, but I think Hawaii is going to get some points on the board. I think it's going to be very high scoring. Give me that over. And then last but not least, USC versus Colorado, over 72. USC's defense is not great. I think USC could give up 30 points, 28 points, and still cover the spread. So at that point, what is that, a 28-56 game? Yeah, that's going to hit the over. Give it to me. I like it a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the VinDawg Pod, episode 10. Thank you so much for following along. Shout out to you, the dogs. And I will see you all next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful way.